In this video, we'll be comparing the differences between Inspire and Luxe. And the feature that we're talking about today is the Steil Stitch. Now, if you notice on your tool panel, the Steil Stitch is hidden away in the Inspire version. This is the Inspire version right here. It doesn't have the Steil. But let me tell you what the Steil does and how important it is. So let's say I had a shape. Let's pick a rectangle here, and I'm going to hit the Command key and just make a square. This is a nice square right here. And let's zoom in a little bit so you can see it really big. If I wanted to convert this into a complex fill, I would have to go to the outline type, put fill, and then click apply. And now that I have my shape, I can then go to auto digitize and just simply digitize the image, and now I have a complex fill. I can change that complex fill to whatever I want, but right now the standard size fill is just fine. Now if I wanted to make a border around this, I would have to create a satin stitch around it, and I would have to do it by hand. So I would go to the satin stitch tool, and I'm going to come here and I'm going to kind of bevel my edges a little bit, and I'm going to go corner to corner. All right. So there might be a slight variance in the thickness of this satin stitch. Okay, and I'm going to close it up right here, and when I'm done, I'm going to right click, and there's my satin stitch. Let's go to the selector tool, and let's pick black as my color on top. Now if you'll notice, there are some slight variances in thickness. I was able to create the border, it's fine. But if I wanted to make this a little bit thicker or thinner, I'd have to redraw the whole thing again. All right, and this is where the Steil Stitch comes in. So now we're going to switch into Luxe so that you can see what the Steil Stitch can do. So let's go to Luxe, and we'll come right back. Enter Chroma Luxe. Now you can notice that the Steil Stitch is available. So let me just show you how easy it is to do. So let's create that same square. We're going to hit the Command key, and let's just make it really big. Okay, and in Chroma Luxe, I don't have to go to the fill or outline. I can just right click and convert it right to a complex fill, and there's my complex fill. I can also right click and convert the go to utility and create a border, and there's my border. So that was two steps that I had to do instead of drawing the satin stitch. Now let's change that border to a darker color so you can see. Now if I wanted to change the thickness, I could go here to the width and change it to, like, let's say a 4mm, and I click apply, and you notice it gets thicker. I couldn't do that with Inspire. Now let's say that I had a more difficult design, or I just wanted to make a border around something that was uneven, but I wanted to create a satin stitch. So let's erase everything and let's do that. So if I had an oblong shape, let's say, let me just create a shape here. I'm just going to draw a random shape. So if I wanted to convert this, I could just right click and convert it to a Steil Stitch, and now I get an even satin stitch all the way around. If I want this satin stitch to be a little bit thicker, no problem. I can just go right up here and change it to, let's say, 5mm, and I can make it really thick. Let's say I wanted to make it 1mm thick. I can just do that and change it to 1mm. So as opposed to me sitting here and doing this with the satin stitches and trying to get it even and making it go around and try to keep it the same thickness. And mind you, once I have it like this, I can't change the thickness. I can change the density, I can change the stitch length, but I can't change the thickness of this satin stitch. Whatever I drew is what it's going to do. But for the Steil Stitch, I can convert it and change it as much as I want all day long, and I can make it thicker or thinner with no problem. Another advantage of the Steil Stitch, check it out. Let's go back. I'm going to go and create another square. Let's make a really big square. Go to my selector tool, right click, convert it to a complex fill. Now I'm going to create that border again, and this border happens to be a Steil Stitch. All right, it's the same thing as this one, but one of the cool things about this border is that not only can you change the width like I was saying before, but you can also, let's change that to black. You can also change the inset of how much inside the border goes or how much outside. So by changing the inset percentage, I'm going to change it to 100%, and notice how the satin is going to be to the edge of the complex fill. If I hit my path tool and I click the square inside, you'll notice that the satin stitch is just on the edge of the complex fill. So if there was any push and pull, this satin stitch would cover it. Now I really don't want this edge to be matched, but I would like it to be inset just a little bit. And 100% in this case is going to be a little bit too much. This is going to cause the complex fill to peek underneath the satin, and you're going to have to start all over again. Go to, let's say, 50 back to where it was. We're going to click apply. Let's go to 10%. And so now it's barely covering the stitches. So if we go to the non-view, you'll notice that the red stitches are just about the same line as my satin stitch. In this case, if you were to embroider this, you would probably see a gap between the red and the black, and we don't want that. So you want the inset to be at least 50% or greater, because right now the red or the border is right in the middle of this satin stitch. So typically about a 75% inset is what you're looking for, and that will accommodate and adjust for some push and pull. So you really don't need to mess with the push-pull compensation of your square. You can just make this inset. Now, if the size of the square has to be like up to 2 inches or exactly 2 inches, then you'd have to leave it at the 50 and just increase the inside of your square by a little bit, by 25%, so that it would be a little bit bigger, and then you would compensate for it that way. Some of you might be thinking, man, I could use this for patches. Of course, if you're creating patches, the steel tool is ideal. By converting the border into a steel tool, you can make the border for your patch, and that's the last thing that you would do when you're making a patch, so that when you're using your Badge Master film, it'll cut it right out. So yes, the steel tool is ideal for making patches as well. No matter what the shape, no matter what the size, it's just a matter of right-clicking, converting that whole complex fill, creating a border around it, and you're all done. So let's continue with the steel. In the steel tool, let's say I had that irregular shape. Let's create an irregular shape again. So there's my steel tool. If I wanted to change the path of the steel tool, I can change my path tool and just change the path. And notice we can modify it and change it however we want. And it changes the satin stitch. So this is just a very fancy customizable satin stitch that you can convert, you can change, and you can make it do whatever you want to do. If this was a satin stitch, I would not be able to do this. So again, let's go to the satin stitch. If I go here and I create my satin stitch, it's going to be, I can round edges on the satin. Okay, so you notice here when I click it, it's got a straight, but when I make it a curve, when I create a curve, it will curve with me. But now I really can't do anything to this. So if I go to the path tool, I could change the shape, but notice how it's just going to do some crazy things, right? So this is not something that you want to be changing the shape of. You want to use the steel unless you know exactly what you're doing. So if you're creating a letter, you can create the letter with the satin stitch. So let's say I'm creating the letter L. I can create it with the satin stitch, no problem. I could do the same thing with the steel. If it's just a thin letter, I could do the same thing. And again, all the steel stitch is just a uniform satin stitch. So you can use it to write letters, you can use it to create borders, you can use it to do pretty much whatever outline you want, anything in satin that is not a very specific area that you're doing. So for example, another one, if I was making a small little teardrop and I wanted to make that teardrop in satin, I could create it like this. There's my teardrop. Okay, let's put it in 3D so you can see it. Now I wouldn't be able to do that in steel because I would just only be drawing a straight line. So that's what the difference is with steel and satin. Yet another thing you can do with the steel stitch is you can create jagged edges on one side or the other or both sides. So let me show what I mean by that. I'm going to create a straight line. I'm going to hit my selector tool and I'm going to come here to the column tool, and let's pick both for now, and let's make this about 4 millimeters big, and we're going to hit apply. Now it's going to put 4 millimeter random marks all over. It did it on both sides. Let's say I want it to be just on the top side. I could go here and look, it did it on the top side. If I want to make it on the bottom side, I can click first and it'll do it on the bottom. So if we were making some kind of funky eyeball and you wanted to have eyelashes, you can create this. If we made the density, let's switch the density to about 0.80. Look at that. You can make it look like little eyelashes, and you can create your path. Or let's say that's the bottom eye. See that? And you notice how I just changed the shape of it really quickly. This is one of the advantages of the steel. I think it's a great tool for outlining, for creating a very uniform satin stitch around whatever object you want, and it's really fantastic. If you're enjoying these videos, make sure you like, share, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you know when we're coming up with the next great issue of Chroma Digitizing. Let us know in the comments below if there's anything else you'd like to learn how to do. And if you think you can benefit from this steel tool, let us know. See you guys on the next video.